Good evening, Village. Welcome to the regular session in-person meeting by the Vicksburg Village Council. I'll call this meeting to order tonight, February 7th, 2022. And I ask that we say a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just want to say real quickly some of the things that we've done. We've been meeting in person for a while, but that doesn't preclude some of the precautions we're taking. There's hand sanitizers on the desk, there's masks available, and just reaching out to the community that on the Vicksburg webpage there is a Zoom meeting notice. You can call in at any time. So we're doing a unique blended meeting. We put it out on YouTube Live and also a Zoom webinar link so all the citizens can call in remotely. We'll take a moment of silence. And Mr. Mallory, if you would please take a roll call.
Yes, Trustee Olson.
Here.
Trustee Merrill. Here. Trustee Wagner.
Here.
Trustee Holmes.
Here.
Trustee Reister.
Here.
Trustee Keller.
Here.
President Frisbee.
Here. We have a full council. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone's feeling better. It's good to see your smiling faces. We have an agenda in front of us for tonight's meeting. Anyone catch any changes or additions by the council or staff?
I would just like to make Tom Ham 11A, and I had him as scheduled appearances, but on the agenda he'd be 11A, and the evaluation would move to 11B.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Tom. Thank you very much.
President Frisbee?
Sure.
Yes. I see that we have eliminated the second citizens' comment time, which was normally just before the village trustees' time. I'd like to know why that has been eliminated.
It was eliminated due to a unanimous council action under council rules back in February of 2020, I believe, but it was unanimously voted to move to one citizen comment at the start. So we followed the council's request.
Okay. The reason I brought that up is I don't remember that happening, but back when Bill Adams was village president, he decided to eliminate that on his own. And I brought that up before the council when I was still a citizen in the audience. And I sent a letter and an email to each and every council member at that time. I know that Colin Bailey and Chris Newman were on, and Kenny Skippers was still village president. It was decided at that time that it would be added back in because we felt that the citizens should have a chance to speak out about actions during the night that they may not have a chance to respond to for 2-3 weeks, even up to a month. So I would like to see that added back in, but that's at the discretion of the council.
Well,
President Frisbee,
sir.
just to correct, it was 2021 last year when we did that, was when we voted it was a Zoom meeting, Trustee Olson, that we did that. Okay. It was a unanimous vote by all of us.
All right.
I do remember that.
I do too.
And it was done, the reason for that was because a lot of the citizens that came to speak, a lot of it was we had agenda and non-agenda items. They were here to speak on agenda items, and that was at the end of the meeting. By the time they got done, the meetings were long enough that they were dropping off the meetings. So we went to one time where they could speak on agenda and non-agenda items, basically anything they wanted. That way they could have their 4 minutes, and then if they wanted to leave the meeting, they could. That's why we did that.
All right.
Was to help the citizens out a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarity. And you are free at any time to make a motion if you so desire.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on that, whether now or later, but I think it's a necessary thing. And a lot of the times, we don't have that many people in the crowd, you know, and I know that Rebecca has stood up twice during the meetings to speak, so, and right now, she's one of the more vocal residents of Vicksburg, so.
And she has, as do all, have plenty of opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Hey, Denny, it's Rick. Can
Yeah.
I just ask you, why do you think the current format doesn't work where we've moved everything to the front? Why would we, I'm looking to understand,
Yeah.
you know, your perspective on this.
Well, there's a lot of things that are going on during the meeting, especially right now with South County Fire Authority. And there might be something said during the meeting that a citizen wants to respond to. Otherwise, they're going to have to wait 2-3 weeks, and during the summer months, even a month before they can respond.
President Frisbee, just so we know, this was done February 1st, 2021. Trustee Keller's correct. He made the motion for approval of the agenda in regards to the time a citizen can speak on agenda and non-agenda items. His motion was for the time to be combined at the start of the meeting, which would allow citizens to speak earlier in the meeting instead of having to wait till the end of the meeting. Within the motion, he requested to increase the time to 4 minutes from 3 minutes. Trustee Reister supported the motion. A roll call vote was conducted with all council members who are present tonight voting to support the motion and in favor of the agenda change.
And I will say that we are all accessible via email or through the village hall. And I will say that anyone, I'm open to any type of communication at any time. So if there ever is some follow-up on a discussion of actions that we took as a council, we're all probably more than willing to speak in outside of the meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
Point of order, Trustee Olson has proposed a motion. Are you looking to that be acted on, or are you looking to pull that motion at this time?
No, I'd like to have it acted on. If I can get a second, then I'd ask for a vote.
There is a motion by Trustee Olson to have village
Second.
resident comments
Yeah.
before and after.
Trustee Holmes, I second.
Motion made, supported by Trustee Holmes.
So I'm clear on the motion, Mr. Olson. Your motion is that the agenda should have a time for citizen comments at the start of the meeting for agenda items, and then a time at the end of the meeting for non-agenda items?
Personally, I believe that we should have.
Mike, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was on. Personally, I think we should have it for agenda and non-agenda items at the beginning and any citizen comments at the end.
Okay, do you want the motion, I'm just clarifying
Yeah.
how to write up the motion. You want both citizen times at the start and at the end of
and
the
at the
meeting?
end, yes.
To allow a citizen to discuss anything that they'd
Yes.
wish to discuss?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any time associated with that?
3 to 4 minutes is fine.
What
Same
would you
with-
like the motion to read, 3 or 4 minutes?
Let's go 4 minutes.
4 minutes. So the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the motion is to have on the agenda, a citizen comment period prior to the approval of the general consent agenda, where a citizen can make any comments related to an agenda or non-agenda item for a time not to exceed 4 minutes, and a second citizen comment period after committee reports and before village trustee time, where a citizen can make a comment on any agenda or non-agenda item for a maximum of 4 minutes.
Yes.
So voting in support of the motion would create the 2 spots as we just stated on the agenda.
Yes.
President Frisbee, a discussion, please.
Yes.
First of all, is this going to be retroactive to tonight's meeting, or is this going to be on the agenda on meetings moving forward, is my first question. My second question is in regards, or actually it's a statement to let all the trustees know that no other governmental body that I've been on that allows citizens' time allows for agenda and non-agenda items at the front end of the meeting and the back end of the meeting. They always, if they have two agenda times, it's an agenda time and then a non-agenda time. It's not both. I'm just making everybody aware of that. So we would be doing something that no other board that I've been on is doing currently, whether it's South County Sewer and Water Authority. Even when we were at the Brady Township meeting the other night, they didn't do it. So I'm just making everybody aware of that. So
Go ahead.
So I wouldn't necessarily be against it if we wanted to move back to the previous format that we used before Zoom, that was agenda items ahead of the agenda and then non-agenda at the end, much like the trustees' time, and reducing the time frame back to 3 minutes for both. I don't think that would necessarily be a bad idea, but I agree with President Pro Tem Keller that 2 agenda and non-agenda items for 4 minutes apiece would be a little redundant, I feel.
If I could, I would agree with Trustee Wagner, and that my second is predicated on that we do have the first discussion is for agenda items, which is fair. The agenda is posted.
And I apologize for interruption. The conversation should be on the motion that is made.
Okay.
And if subsequent from that, there's other motions, that's up to this board for sure. But the motion that Trustee Olson made was under what Trustee Olson said. So that after conversation,
Right.
another motion could be made, but.
point of order, I still have a question on the table as to whether this is going to be retroactive to the beginning of tonight's meeting, or this is going to be, we're going to follow this format after tonight's meeting. That was my question I originally asked.
I would rather we follow it after tonight's meeting. I don't think there's going to be a big fury of people asking to make statements. Yeah.
Well, motions are made and been seconded. We'll take a roll call, please. Mr. Mallory?
Okay, hearing no further.
One last thing. If we're voting, we haven't amended what Trustee Olson said, so we're voting on the ability as is.
Correct.
And so I would like to make a motion that we amend the motion of Trustee Olson so that at the beginning of the meeting, it is open discussion about agenda items, just as it was before, and at the end is open so that there is some order to the meeting, is how I would wish to amend Trustee Olson's request.
I'm not quite
President
sure we can
Frisbee.
make a motion to amend a motion that's not been acted upon. So we need to act on this motion.
Okay.
Why, I'm just,
Well, my legalese right-hand man right here is telling me we can amend a motion before it's made. You have to vote on the amendment first.
I'm so willing, yes, yes.
I have a question, Rick. Are you saying then that we would go back to the 3-minute limit for each time?
2 back then, wasn't it?
I don't necessarily have an issue with the 3 or 4 minutes, and I welcome any citizen coming in and talking to us, Gail. I'll allow other discussion for that. I don't necessarily have an issue either way. I just think that, I think it worked well for us for the 3 years that I've been here, that we've had agenda items first and then non-agenda items second. And it just seemed to be more of an orderly process, and I think that's what we're all looking for, is to give everyone their opportunity to talk, but also do it in an orderly fashion is all.
I guess what I'm saying is that I would be in favor as long as we switched it back to 3 minutes at each time.
The other.
We still have to make a roll call on the motion that was made, and then you can make a motion to amend that after the fact. that now we have to vote on what has been brought to the table in front of us, correct?
Well, there's another way to do it. Mr. Olson could withdraw his motion and make a second motion if he chooses, it's his choice, based on the discussion. Or we have an option, I'm not clear what the amendment would be, but we could vote on the amendment of two, I believe what I heard from multiple council members were a time at the start of the meeting, a time at the end of the meeting, a 3-minute time limit. The start of the meeting would be for agenda items, and the end of the meeting would be non-agenda items. I believe that was the amendment I heard. If you wish to take a vote on the amendment, we could do that. I think myself, the rules would allow it. I think the record from the discussion would be clear if Mr. Olson wants a vote on both agenda and non-agenda at the start and end with a 4-minute time limit. We take that vote first, and then any of the trustees can make what would just be a new motion based on possibly what we discussed as the amendment. So we do have a motion on the floor and seconded with what Mr. Olson, Trustee Olson said, 4-minute time limit, start and end, agenda and non-agenda.
Okay.
The senator from West Virginia would like to talk. Mr. Olson, what say you?
Mike.
I say yes.
Okay.
You're saying yes to what?
So
The 4 minutes at the beginning and the 3 minutes at the end.
4 and 4? No, you said
4 and 4, yeah. Okay. We'll go with that.
Well, we're not going to change the motion of the record. It's
Right.
a tape-recorded motion. It's what I said originally was 4 minutes at the start, 4 minutes after committee reports
Yeah.
and before village trustee time.
Yes.
And within the 4 minutes, it could be an agenda or non-agenda item. That is what the motion was, and that's what Trustee Holmes seconded.
President Frisbee, we're getting into Robert's Rules of Order deep in the weeds right now, so we have a motion on the floor. We had an amendment that was proposed by Trustee Holmes.
It was never seconded. It was only,
Trustee Olson seconded it.
Yes.
He did. I heard him, and he agrees to it.
Yes.
okay?
So where we're at now is the amendment to, he motioned to amend the original motion, which would be to go agenda items at the beginning and non-agenda items at the end after committee reports. So,
No, before committee.
before committee reports. So at that time, at this
no,
time,
I'm sorry.
after committee reports.
Yes.
So at this time, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. We need to vote on that. If that passes, it'll amend his original motion, and then we vote on that. As amended. We would be voting on the motion as amended.
Okay.
If the amendment passes. Does that make sense?
Scorecard.
Okay,
I'm correct on it.
okay.
I'll go with Carl.
My political science major professor at Central Michigan would say you're correct on it, so.
Yeah,
Well, you know,
yeah,
the Broncos not chipping in, so. So anyways, President Frisbee, at this time, we have a motion and a second on an amendment to basically revert back to the prior February 1st, 2021 format that we had, for lack of a better term. So that's, I think, where we need to go right this, so we can get this moved along.
So very good. We vote on the first motion,
No,
On the amendment.
no,
on the
amendment.
amended motion.
So the amendment is citizen comments on agenda items after correspondence for a time not to exceed 3 minutes, agenda items only. A second, citizen comments after committee reports for non-agenda items to not exceed 3 minutes. Is that the understanding of the motion, President Pro Temp Keller? Or the amendment?
That was the understanding of the amendment, basically to revert back to prior February 1st, 2021. Prior to the February 1st, 2021 amendment we did to the rules, or to the agenda, set agenda.
Okay. And I believe that Trustee Holmes made the motion for this amendment. Are you in agreement that's what it is?
I am in agreement, yes.
And Trustee Olson, are you in agreement? You seconded his motion or amendment to the,
Yes, yes.
okay.
Okay.
We'll take a roll call if you would, please.
Roll call vote. Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
No,
Okay.
I like the way it was. So that motion carries as amended. And we need to vote on the motion, the original motion? As amended.
So now the motion will be to have public comments after correspondence on agenda items only for a time limit not to exceed 3 minutes. A second period of citizen comments after committee reports on non-agenda items for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
Everybody good with that motion?
Yep.
We'll take a roll call, please.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
No. Motion carries. So we got that out of the way.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you.
We did just have the move Tom Ham to 11A and 11B.
As amended.
Okay.
Sorry.
Trustee Wagner, I support the agenda as amended.
We'll just do a roll call on that. All right, no, a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We have an approval on the agenda, and we have, we'll take off Tom till later. I see no public officials. Do we have anyone on the Zoom call, Jim, that we need to bring in?
We do, and a couple citizens, so ask for a little bit of patience. But if you wish to speak to the council, if you're on a computer, if you can move the cursor over the screen and hit that raised hand at the bottom, be happy to call on you. If you're on a phone, I don't
Mr.
see it.
Mallory?
What?
We were on public officials?
Oh, we have no public officials.
No
on
public
that.
officials
I
on the
did
line.
send the link to Mr. Gisler, but he's at another
right.
meeting.
And you all are aware of the correspondence. It's in our data packet tonight from South County Fire Authority. Yes, I would ask all of you to please read it thoroughly, try to understand where the position of this community is in that regard. And so we'll jump over to citizens' comments now.
I'm so excited to use this new system. We'll first go to the system and then to the people in attendance. So again, if you wish to speak, and we do have one citizen that has electronically raised your hand, if you can state your name and address and just unmute. And go ahead, Tanya, say your name and address.
Tanya DeLong, 220 South Michigan Avenue. agenda and attachments for the council meeting. And I was reading through that this weekend, and I was very concerned about a couple of things that I saw. I have questions. These are questions that when y'all are reading through them, if you haven't had a chance yet, I think it would be a good thing for you to think about these questions. Number one, why were Tracy Losey and Tanya D both paid 2019, 2020, and 21?
Watch it
I've trained a
backfeeding.
lot of people. I've been manager. I've had a lot of positions where I had to hire people and have them train. And in no way do I believe that it took 2.5 years to train Tanya D. And I think that that's totally unacceptable. And I would like an explanation for it. Number two, in one of the emails, Tracy told Tanya that if she would forward her the information that was requested, that she would give her the information to fill in. Tracy filled in the information about herself, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. If something's being questioned about why it was done, why is the person concerned answering the questions and giving the feedback? I'm an accountant. I've been an accountant since 1981. Even when I owned my own store, I was still an accountant. I feel that there needs to be a full forensic audit done on South Kalamazoo County Financial Authority's books for the last 7 years, because just in what I've seen, there are a lot of things that are raising questions to me. In reading the report from the auditor, I think that even though it's a small board, it's a government board, and there are generally acceptable accounting rules that need to be followed. And I don't believe that they've been followed as closely as they should have. So I have an issue with the way their accounting principles are followed. In another email, it talked about they didn't have a policy for one thing or another. I think that should be addressed as well. I think that if there's something that's come up and they don't have a policy for it, I believe that as a governing board, a government governing board, they need to amend their policies. And if something comes up, there should be a policy in place to handle it. I have a huge concern for conflict of interest in a board member receiving an exorbitant amount of money. If you look just in the information that we were given, the amount of money that Jason Gatlin received for computers, a tablet, monitors, and labor. I looked at Best Buy for the exact same computer, exact same tablet, exact same monitors, and they could be bought way less than he was paid to get them for. In my understanding, and I can be corrected if I need to be, governments follow bid processes, especially when there's $5,000. That should have been bid out to buy those computers, or at least someone should have been held responsible for getting prices from other places than Jason. And this isn't against Jason. I love Jason. He's a nice guy. But I think in order to be fiscally responsible, he would want that as well. It looks to me like the board doesn't have a handle or a grasp of their fiscal responsibility or their governmental responsibility. And I just question that as both a citizen and a planning commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, checking them.
Okay, if everyone, all right, if there's another citizen, we have a couple more that have called in on the webinar, want to speak to the council. Again, it appears both are on computer. Just wave the cursor, and at the bottom there's a raised hand. If you go ahead and hit that, I'll give it about another 20 seconds. We'll see. And I think both people have done that before, so I'm confident not. And Mr. Frisbee, I would say that covers everyone on the webinar. And to our citizens, we'll do our best to continue this practice, and we just ask for patience as we're operating many things. So to people inside the room.
Yes?
Rebecca Walters, 420 South Kalamazoo Street. It's not, okay. I want to say I agree completely with Tanya after going over the budget. I did heed warning back in November that there was something odd and off about this and that we needed to look into it. And I want to thank our village manager for actually attending the meeting and trying to get answers on behalf of most of the residents on their issues that they brought up about this. With that, I would also like to get into, can we please plow between the South and Park Street between Kalamazoo and Main Street? We are the only north and south running alley. We've got street parking on both ends, funeral home, and a bunch going on there. And those coming out are not fun. And we've got learning drivers next to us. My kids and my next door neighbor's kids, we got 8 years until our kids are driving. And, you know, pretty soon they're going to have to start, you know, a little bit younger to get a hang of that, especially in these Michigan winters. And it would be lovely if the first step out of our driveway wasn't an ice rink for the neighbor kids and my kids growing up, and me alone, especially when we've got the funeral home right there. I would also like to bring up the fact that a meeting ago, possibly 2 meetings ago, it was changing the classifications for like the funeral home, the shell, and Finks, or the doghouse. I made you guys aware that the residents were not given notice and that we were unaware. And you guys voted and passed it anyway, knowing that the residents and the neighbors, the ones who would be directly affected by this decision, were not notified. We were not aware. And you guys proceeded to pass it and say, you know what, who cares if they were notified? I was told that we were mailed out letters. And when I came back and stated that no one got letters, it was told that, well, we'll look into it. And then you guys proceeded to vote and pass it anyway without giving your residents a chance to be aware and come to these meetings and speak up about it. So I'm asking that if we make it known to you guys that we were not notified, or that my neighbors had no idea, and had they known, they would have been in attendance to actually know what was going on to our neighbors, that we could be in attendance to speak up about it, or push that agenda item back a meeting to make sure that the residents are properly notified. And with that, that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think that concludes the citizens' comment time. We have a consent agenda in front of us, the minutes.
President Frisbee, I did want to note on the agenda for the general consent agenda, the warrant report total dollar amount, which I provided to the council, is $61,572.42. $61,572.42.
Thank you, Jim. So we have a minutes of our regular council work session from January 17 and the regular session council meeting of the same date. We have an event request and the correspondence, as you've seen. Were there any corrections to that consent agenda that we need to make?
President Frisbee, I had just a few spelling and grammatical issues with the minutes, but I can provide those afterwards. Yep.
That'd be fine, thank you. Trustee
Tim,
Holmes?
I have a correction, but it's not on that. It's on the manager evaluation. There's a error in the math of So I'm just, before we get too far, I just want you to know.
Okay. I mean, was it a total error, or is it just one line item?
Well, looks like I can't stand you. There's an error there.
Oh, well, it's an error to his favor, so.
Yes, so. We have our issues, but it's not that bad.
Well, Carl,
I move to approve as amended on the minutes.
Second. Second, trustee Holmes.
there's a motion and support. We'll have to do a roll call. Mr. Mallory?
Roll call vote. Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes,
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. We have an approved consent agenda. Now we have Village Council action items in front of us. We have Mr. Tom Ham with Renaissance Golf leading our effort with the golf course.
Yep, and if you give me a second, I will try to get, now one thing in our practice that we found out is if I go to the full PowerPoint, it overwhelms Zoom. So that's why we're gonna stay in this kind of draft version. And as Tom tells me to move down to the next, I'll move down to the next. But that's the reason it's not in a clicking PowerPoint, if you will. But still pretty proud of being getting this to pull off. So with that, Tom, if people remember, I think it was about January of 2018. We had looked and made several moves with inside the village and had identified the golf course and the golf course fund that we wanted to take a look at it. So first met Tom, I think it was up in Otsego. We met, and truly it didn't take long to understand that this gentleman knows operation of golf courses, and he can get into how many courses they still operate. We brought him in behind the 8 ball a little bit because it was way late going into the 2018 golf season. He then and continues now, going into our 4th year of our relationship, keeps telling me where this course is going to get to, and it's improved so much. I'd like to remind the council and public of just on January 17th, the auditor's presentation on how the golf fund financially has improved. But Tom, I'm sure we'll get into the conditions, playability of the course and that, and I could go on a lot more. I've grown to have a ton of respect for Tom's work ethic and integrity. So with that, Tom, if you just give me a nod, a thumbs up, I'll move to the next slide.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Jim. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to the council for giving me a few minutes to give you an update on your golf course. First slide, or the second slide, Jim, is just talking about our department leadership. Your golf course is doing financially very well and has gained, I think, some well-deserved notoriety in that space. When we came on board, you were battling some elements that were hurting your revenue streams, and I think we've got those corrected. I feel pretty good about that. I do want to acknowledge Dave Mosini, your general manager, Jason Culver's your superintendent. We added Jason, I should know this, but I think it was 3 years ago. Nathan Greenway is his assistant. He was just added last year. And quite honestly, our entire clubhouse and maintenance staff as a team has been just fantastic for you folks. And, even during COVID, we've had, golf's been great. It's been a really nice byproduct of COVID, but the labor market has has hurt us operationally, but we're battling just like everyone else. Those are your three main. We did have Carlotta Cessna back on our staff late fall. We were really looking forward to having Carlotta back, and as I'm sure most of you know, she passed away in her sleep about a month ago. It was just devastating for us. She was a great team member early on, and she was going to be back with us, and we're devastated by that. Dave Mosini is, next slide, Jim. Dave Mosini, unfortunately, is retiring. He did retire, but he would like to stay on for a day or two, and I think we would all welcome that. Dave's a fantastic guy, past president, of the PGA. I was lucky to have him with my company, and he still is. It's just he's like me and several of us, just not a spring chicken anymore. And his wife's retired, and he's going to take some time to enjoy that. But he would like to stay involved for 1 or 2 days. I think that would be a great decision on our part to work that in. We're currently conducting a search for the new GM, golf professional, and I'll keep you abreast as we progress with that. Dave, again, can't thank him enough. He's done a great job for Angels Crossing, and I think if you take a look at your financials, you'll agree. Next couple of slides there, Jim. So financial review summary. I'm not going to get into the weeds too deeply, but we're right on track with what we talked about 4 or 5 years ago and what we thought Angels could do. We've been assisted by COVID. It's been good for golf. I think your revenues, I mean, for what we do and what we have to offer and the setting that we offer it, I think your revenues are really good. They're at 1.35 approximately. And that was through June of last year. You guys are, I'm sure you're aware, on a weird fiscal. Well, it's not weird for you guys. It's
Tom,
weird for industries. Yes.
That's what I was going to highlight. And Tom and I have had very interesting conversations of this. Obviously, Tom is used to a golf season being a calendar year, and we're used to fiscal years that end in June 30th, right dead in the middle. So I would like to highlight the June of 18 numbers are predominantly all pre-Renaissance Golf and Tom Ham, because that was from the fall of 17. But go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so as you can see, I won't talk about what's in the past, but we've had a nice progression as we thought we would. We are at you need to go back one, Jim, for me. So you're at your net income of last, I don't know how you say it, just 21 season, 21, 22, or however you want to say it, but this year, closeout as of June 30th was 234,000. And I don't want to speak for your previous records, but I don't think you were doing that well previously. So we're happy with that progress. We hope you share that joy with us. And we'll continue to try to improve on that number, although it's a really good, solid number. Capital improvement, thank you. Thank you, and thank you some more for approving the capital expenditure for equipment. Your equipment was getting quite dated, and it was getting really tough for us to provide the golf course that everyone is excited to play and is responsible for much of the numbers that you see, those positive numbers. We talked to Jim 4 or 5 years ago and told him exactly this. You improve the product and people will come. And Angels is a fantastic layout. It's fun to play. Everyone enjoys it. It was the conditioning that was lacking. And we're really solid now. And with this new equipment, we would continue on that path. And I think you'll see a lot of happy people as you continue on. Just for the council's information, when we look at equipment, and you know, the equipment is based on hours of operation, and no one can make any sense out of that, right? It doesn't make any sense, hours. What does that mean? So we try to put it in a like your automobile, put it in that context. And for every hour that the machine runs, we'll call it 60 miles in your vehicle. So every time you have an hour, it's 60 hours or 60 miles on your car. So as we go through these equipment expenditures that you've been so gracious with, you can see that our equipment was aging and in bad need of upgrades, and we appreciate that. The whole crew is excited. They have new toys, kind of, but they, you know, it's things that they can make an impact with rather than fixing equipment. All hours will be dedicated to improving the golf course. Yeah, thanks, Jim, for sliding that. So what we've done is what you approved a few months ago. We have replaced our T-mowers and our approach mowers. And approach is all the finely mown areas around the greens. And those pieces of equipment have been replaced, and we do have those costs to the right there. You can see that the current equipment that we were using, they're around 7,000 hours. So what does that equate to? A lot of miles if it was your car.
500,000.
What is that? Let me think that. It's is that
500,000.
360
420,000,
hours
Tom.
or miles? Yeah, somewhere in there. So yes, so we have excited to get the tees and approaches, that new equipment for that. Our greens and fairways are good for now. We did make investments over that in those areas in the last 4 years. So those are good, but they're coming, and we'll get that budgeted and let you know well in advance what that will look like, so we can make plans for that. Next slide there, Jim. Thank you. Our rough unit, we purchased a rough unit with your approval a year and a half ago. So we're good with the rough. The bunkers have a new machine, a John Deere machine that rakes and smooths the bunkers. That's another well-needed piece of equipment that will help with our bunkers. We got a lot of bunkers and a lot of waste area. The utility and cultural practices machinery, you got to transport workers around the course, and they need the back buckets to be able to put stuff in. We purchased 3 of those here recently in our recent order, and we also have 2 that were included in our golf cart lease. So the guys can get around quicker. They're not walking anywhere. They can be more productive, and they're really excited about that too. We did add a used True Turf roller. Best I can explain it for you that don't play golf, it's just a real heavy piece of equipment that you run back and forth on the greens, and it smooths and takes out all the imperfections. And Angels Crossing has got more greens than probably 3 other courses combined. The green space is incredible. And we've got those green speeds up to play like the golf course was designed. And these pieces of equipment, especially the rollers and the mowers, are a big part of that. Included in our purchase was a Redexum aerifier. That's the thing that pokes the holes in the grass and takes out soil compaction, and takes out those cores so that the grass can remain healthy. And one more slide, Jim. And the other things that we've added were a Buffalo Turbine blower. Those are that's the piece of equipment that you kind of pull behind a golf cart, and it'll knock you down if you get in its way. It removes leaves, debris, and verticutting debris, and it's just badly needed. It's just a staple in the golf course industry. Our John Deere mower, we're greatly appreciative for that. We'll be able to do our own aerification processes with the new equipment that we got. We were outsourcing that, but that's not the only purpose of that tractor. That tractor will get a lot of use, and again, everything that you've purchased is going to help with the productivity and morale of your maintenance crew. Last year, we did get a new golf cart fleet with a GPS systems. With the exception of a few learning the system, I think the golf cart GPS system was really enjoyed. I mean, this gives you your yardage, the hole, gives you a visual of the golf hole itself when you're teeing off. It keeps people away from areas that they shouldn't be in, which doesn't matter how many times you tell them, they usually drive in those areas anyways. But the main things that having the GPS system, you can turn the cart off or give them a warning where they are not able to enter certain areas. So no one pulling up on the side of our greens, and then you can't grow grass on that because they create a cart path on the sides of the greens. Some safety areas that that we just don't want anyone hurt. Don't want to lose a golf cart down a little hill or anything like that. So that has been a welcome addition. The other thing is, I think part of our income is that if you've been out to the golf course, the clubhouse is quite a ways away from the 1st and 10th tees, and we can track player activity. So if you play for 9, you're only playing 9. You don't get to keep going on, and I think that has really been a benefit of the system. And you can communicate with people too on the golf course if there's a lightning storm coming, or want to remind them that they can order at the turn for the halfway house. All those systems are in place, and really a nice high-end feature of a high-end golf course like Angels Crossing. Course updates. So our plans are our continued improvement on the course conditions with the new equipment. Again, I think we've achieved, it was poor, and then when we were good, everyone thought it was fantastic, but we knew it wasn't quite there. Last year, it got almost there, and this year, I think you're right on top with any of the other golf courses in the state with conditioning and expectations from the people that play there. Our practice green project started a long time ago. We got delayed because of COVID and help and just other things that we felt were more important than expanding the practice green. But we did make some progress this fall. We expect this spring to bring in the sand, shape it, and get the irrigation and seeding done, and hopefully we'll be on that in July or August. Now, for those of you that don't play golf, we have a practice green right outside the clubhouse that is unputtable. I mean, it's so sloped that you putt it and the ball rolls off the green and into the creek in most areas. So it's really a wasted space. So we're going to take that and make it a nice asset for relatively no money. There's some irrigation costs, which we've already purchased. And, people, before they come out to play, if they're first time, you want that first impression for them to be on that practice green and going, wow, these greens are really cool. And they should be an indicator of what's on the golf course. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Lastly, we have some cart path grading and some added tailings that we've talked to Jim about. Hopefully we're on track to get those in the spring. And a possible chemical treatment that may bond that and maybe almost create an asphalt surface. We are at a different golf course. We are investigating that process by trial and error.
Tom,
And
if I can, Tom, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
to let the council know what Tom means by tailings is a couple of, I think 3, maybe 4 years ago, when we did our road milling projects in the village, we kept the millings, transported them to the golf course. This was pre-Tom. The problem that occurred there was they're put in piles and not put out on the golf course. So Tom and I've talked, it would be an improvement if under the 22-23 road projects, and Jason Culver has just a phenomenal work ethic. It'd be coordinated timing-wise to get the road millings out there, put down when they're fresh road millings, and then the process Tom's talking about is, if it's practical for out there, I'll use the word a tar process like we've done in a couple of streets in the neighborhoods in Kalamazoo Avenue where they drop over, and if that process can be done. So sorry about that, Tom.
No, that's fine. So right now there's a chemical treatment, it's a polymer, an adhesive that we are experimenting with at a different golf course. I'm going to gain that experience, and then if we can bring it over to Angels, and it's, of course, with your approval, I'll give you costs and all that, but it'd be nice to get that done. It's the only thing that you're going to be missing. The golf experience is, I don't know, it's the only negative at Angels Crossing at this point, where you just feel like you're getting bounced out of a golf court or a golf cart. And but we're working on that, and we'll try to we'll keep you informed, and hopefully we can get that fixed for you. So in summary on your course conditions, and I don't know how many people have been on the board before, but we did a lot of clearing, and we did a lot of really good things to show the vistas at Angels Crossing. With the improved conditions, again, it's been 4 years, and that's kind of right on track to what we talked about, how long it would take to get the golf course back into where people are talking about, you got to go play there. I think that from the feedback that I'm getting, hopefully you're getting the same feedback. I think the customer satisfaction is at an all-time high since the village has owned the golf course. I may be wrong, but that's what I'm hearing from the people who have played it for a long time. The greens have been maintained with proper speeds, and the customers have just been loving the golf course because it just plays different. The greens are so large. They were designed to not have all puttable space. It was designed to filter the ball into certain areas. And with the proper speeds on the greens, we're getting that. It's really an interesting and fun golf course to play. Our last problem that we were having on the golf course was just our fairways, and we've got those fixed with some creative grooming, and the ball's rolling out, and the fairways are at a lower cut, which everyone appreciates when playing. So our acceptable conditions is not what we were looking for. We're looking for exceptional, and we are really close to that. I think from all accounts, with those few minor things that we've talked about, I think I don't think I know you're going to be there this year. There's going to be improvement on the golf course, but it's not going to be conditioning. If we can just maintain where we are, there will be just project improvements that you can be involved with and approve, and they got to make sense fiscally and obviously for the customer that enjoys paying $60, $70, $80 to play the golf course. So with your continued support, we appreciate that. It's been a great experience for us at Renaissance, and we certainly hope it's been good on the side of the Village Council. So in conclusion, I really want to thank, and I'm being very brief because I think that's how you guys want me to be. Of course, the folks on the council, the village. Jim's been fantastic, and Michelle have been fantastic. Have been very supportive over the last 4 years. I don't know that you guys have ever said no to us. I'll take that as a compliment, but I'll take that as doing our jobs, because we don't ask for anything that's unreasonable. It doesn't benefit you as a company or a course. So we're optimistic and appreciate the relationship, and hopefully we keep a strong bottom line for you in the years to come. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Mr. Ham? Yes?
Would it be possible to put the financial slide up? I just want to ask Tom some questions. Tom, hi, it's Rick Holmes, Trustee Holmes.
Yeah, I'll
It's
get
good to-
that.
Hey, Rick.
It's good to see you.
So you know
see you.
Okay, then-
that slide will be different than the auditing slide. The auditing slide is a running balance.
Okay,
That was looking at the individual years. So golf course funds, and so you know all of the staff is also called in. So the police chief, DPW, and Michelle are on the Zoom portion if I ever needed to bring them in.
okay.
And we just wanted to be more safe and
Are we
limit
making it too
people
easy?
inside.
Okay, Chief. I was joking.
Everyone in this room sees my nonverbals trying to make sure all this stuff is coordinated. But let me get this back up. I
Okay.
just wanted that point, Mr. Holmes, that on the financials, it'll be different than what we saw 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago was probably
Okay.
2.5
Thank
times the
you.
amount.
No, hey, Tom, and first off, I did enjoy a round of golf last fall, and I experienced firsthand the improvements that you're talking about, as well as the golf carts, which I wasn't sure if Jim was monitoring my play, because I couldn't get off that course. Everywhere I went, I was locked in. So I learned my lesson to follow the rules on the golf course, because the equipment does limit where you're going to go, which I think is actually pretty cool. Hey, the question that I've got, I wanted to step back a little bit, and fortunately, I've enjoyed living in Greensboro for 16 years. I've been there at the start of this when Bob Thompson built it, and so I have perspective. And the one thing that I realized was that realistically, prior to COVID, rounds of golf were going down, and the course actually wasn't making money. And it was a challenge, and that's why I think, to some extent, besides good management that maybe was in question, I think it's fair to say also that, you know, from a revenue standpoint, it was falling off a little bit as well. The one thing that we know is that we've got a mature asset, to the point you've made regarding some of the equipment needs to be made or replaced. This course is 15, 16 years old, and I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is that it's great to see that we are going to look at our capital and capital that's needed for here. And talking with Jim, there's going to be replacement, just as a replacement program, just as we do with village capital. I think that's great. And also for people that are joining, just to remind everybody, this golf course is not funded by any taxpayer dollars. It is an enterprise fund that is funded with those receipts that come in from golf course play. And so that's I think it's also fair to make sure everyone understands that. My question in saying all this, Tom, is, when I look at the course and I see those, and I'm thinking out 2, 3, 4, 5 years down, I think it's great again that we're putting together a capital budget. My question is, how long are those golf cart bridges going to last us? Because the people that put them in, I knew, and those weren't cheap. Those are actually very expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious. I haven't walked them recently because I've been asked not to, but I'm just curious as it relates to the condition of them now. If you might be able to give us an update, your perspective on that.
Well, you're right. They are very expensive. Overall, we haven't done a test on the footings or anything like that. But overall, the surfaces, we're repairing. You have trees fall on them all the time in the winter, and we have worked on clearing some of that out so that doesn't happen. But overall, you know, yeah, I mean, you're talking 5, 6, 7 years. There may be issues. I would say that the biggest expense is probably in the footings, because, you know, it's over water, right? I mean, that's why there's a bridge there.
Right.
It's over swampland. So, you know, we haven't, that's a really good question. I think that's something we probably should look at next year. I personally don't have, probably the only expertise I don't have in the golf course business, but that should be looked at. But the surface, as far as the surfaces go, they're pretty good. Now, you get a rough ride because, like, sometimes when you're entering those bridges, and that's a lot of the, you know, just the movement of the bridge, when it's connected to the cart path, I think we can fix some of those things, obviously, but I think it's a really valid question and something that we should look at, and we will look at this year.
Great.
And I think it's going to take, I don't know if you guys have got any connections, but I mean, I have some, they're just not local. The guys that are specialized in those bridge building, there's 2 of them, one's out of Florida, I think the other one's out of New Jersey, but we'll have to get someone that's got that expertise, because I do not.
Okay. I appreciate that, Tom. It's, and for those that aren't aware, and again, I'm not an expert on this, and I'm only going off of memory, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars those bridges cost. These aren't 5,000, 10,000, and so that revenue you see up there, which is why I asked to be put up, if we do have to replace those, it will have an impact upon the financial well-being of the course. And I'm not looking to grill that home to anybody. I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Again, just having that perspective from my vantage point. You know, the one thing also that I think that I'm just curious, Tom, your thoughts on this, and obviously you've seen the cyclical nature of golf up and down, and I mean, not too long ago there were courses that were struggling so bad that they actually increased the size of the hole, the putting hole, and they used soccer balls to try to draw in younger crowds, as well as kegs on golf carts. I was told it was nuts. Do you see us getting back to normalized golf once we get beyond the COVID? What are you hearing from the industry? Are the numbers we're seeing sustainable?
They think they are. Me personally, I did all of that. I mean, so we're involved with 8 other facilities. And after the 2000 year, I reduced all of our revenue budgets by 80%, just thinking there's no way that we were going to retain all those new golfers, right? I mean, so I thought, well, if we retain 80%, I think that's reasonable. I think it was optimistic. Turns out I was wrong. It looks like about 20% more people. So I only missed it by 40%, but I look like a genius when I'm running them, just not when I did the budget. So, so I would tell you that a lot of people have entered it. The National Golf Foundation predicts really good things. Even if the bottom fell out, here's the thing with Angels. It's such a superior product to all the others. You're going to be fine even if we got back to those levels. Everyone wants to play the golf course, and they won't play others that are just not as good. So you lead that industry. You just have to remember that you are the leader. You are the best. And there's going to be golf, even if the bottom fell out of the golf market, which no one's predicting it is. The retention levels of the people that have picked up the game in the last 2 years is really incredible. I mean, it's they're talking about the Tiger era when Tiger Woods came on and the golf just exploded. So I would always be cautious, but I'd be very optimistic that you guys are the best gig in that area. And everyone wants to play it that has taken up the game. So I would be cautious, but I would be very optimistic.
And thank you, Tom, and I agree with you. I think it's the course is set up very, very well. And I remember the first time I played it and there were no pitch marks on the green, and I wanted to remember it, and I wish I had a camera, because as all things, we get a little bit older and things change, right? So One last question for you, and that is, we're seeing more neighborhoods being developed around the golf course. There's the condos, there's Greensboro. Development everywhere is going on right now. One of the things that I know to be true in my travels around the United States, at every golf course that I've been on, whether it's a muni or whether it's a private course, is that they always look for those neighborhoods to kind of be the economic foundation for them, because that's why people move there. And I'm just curious, from your vantage point, what do you think we can do, or do you have any ideas or suggestions on how we can bring those people in? Because I've heard it said on occasion that we're just not getting the support from individuals that live there. Is there anything you see that your group can do, your team or the village can do to bring more people into the golf course from the surrounding neighborhoods?
Well, I mean, we offer one thing, right? I mean, we offer golf, and it's not country club atmosphere where we have a pool and we have, a play set for the kids and, horse trails and, all those types of things. I will tell you that people move to golf course communities, not to play golf. Only about 20% of the people play golf. They move there because it maintains their home value. It's a great environment to live in a golf course community because you have that setting. Now, a lot of those people in the past 5-6 years have had their views, golf course sells, and they don't have golf course views anymore. Fortunately, that's not going to be the case for, the people that live in the Angels community. But that's I would say. I would tell you that we do have a resident rate for them. I mean, I think you've done everything that you possibly can to encourage their participation. We offer golf. It's not like we have all these other amenities that can enhance their living experience in that area.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Tom?
I have one. Tom, do you know what our ranking is in Southwest Michigan? I saw an article about golf a couple of years ago, which I am not a golfer. I don't read golf. But it mentioned that I believe it was us, or one of the local courses in the area is ranked 19th in this area. Do you have any idea?
I don't know what Golf Week is a national recognition or recognized publication. You used to be number 19 on top courses you could play, so public golf courses.
Yeah.
According to them, it wasn't the same for Golf Digest and Golf. There's a million of them.
Yeah.
I think our rating is based on the customers that play it.
Okay.
If they're happy, we're happy.
There you go.
And I will tell you, a lot of these groups pop up and they we're going to rank your course as top community golf course. By the way, can you buy some advertising?
Sure.
That's what it's about. And I give you a half an hour on, media and that type of thing. And I don't spend any money on it. It's a waste of money, waste of time.
Yeah.
Call it vanity articles. The only people we're concerned with are the people that are going through there and their experience.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
And we appreciate that thought process, Tom. We'll make it quick if there's no other questions for Tom. Seeing none, I myself, 5 years ago went into this, and you gave your initial presentation, and it was hard for me to be supportive, but we had no choice, right? We were either going to go into the tank or we were going to make something happen. And there's a couple on this council that took that risk, and you've showed us what we can be. We've given you that support to get there. And you've taken us there. So I just look at 5 years ago, right? we were up 29% in revenue this year, and everybody, it's exciting to be 29%, but if you look at the first year of a -10 in my math, that's a positive 49% swing. That's huge, and it's because of the quality of the golf, of the play. So I'm not an avid golfer, but I just hear a lot of positive things. I see the revenue. I'm a numbers guy, and you know, you're doing a good job. So I know you haven't had an opportunity to listen to some of the other council meetings we've had, but you've gotten a lot of accolades here in these last few meetings over your financial performance and what you've done for that course. So we thank you very much, Tom, and look forward to a long relationship with you, with your team.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah,
you,
everyone who
Tom.
remotes in, Tom, everyone here understands you're running multiple courses, so click off and get some sleep.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank
All right,
you.
we'll be
Bye.
talking.
All right.
So we got the manager's evaluation up next, and I'll give a quick overview of it. May I borrow that real quick? It's in here somewhere. We have done this a while ago, and I apologize to Jim Mallory for the delays, you know, with COVID and everybody's personal and work life. We gave the HR committee and Jim met, and we gave him his review, gave him the feedback. I gave you copies of it, and some of the comments are in there. And I used positive comments and I used negative comments. I used comments that I thought kind of captured the whole idea of what everybody was communicating. And so we went over that with Jim, line item by, question by question, and gave him the results on that. Out of a 595 total possible points, our village manager scored 528.5 points on that. Outstanding representation for what a village can do. Jim, we thank you very much for your leadership and your tenacity in it. As you've said before, you know, you're not going to be everybody's friend, but it's going to be a ship that stands upright and sails proud. So that's what we're doing here. The HR team also are going to have some recommendations for changes in the way we put together the evaluation form. There's some areas that we don't have good oversight on, and we think it's a little bit time consuming. So we're going to go to a standard business model. You fail, you meet expectations, you exceed expectations. Get it a little more simplified. I know this is a task for everybody that took quite a while to put it together. So we're going to readdress that as time goes on for the next meeting. But Jim, thank you for all you've done. Tremendous results in everything you've done financially for this community. So, and I think your score reflects that. So if anybody has any questions about it, you know, feel free to reach out to me on this later. Was there any comments or current?
If I could, President Frisbee, just
Sure.
one question, and that is, I do appreciate the HR committee providing this, and it's great, you know, it's great to see all the information together. I just want to be, so that I'm aware here, I've never been privy to, did the village manager release this so that, or is this eligible for people to review, or is this for council's discretion? I just want to make sure I understand to the extent of which this document can be shared that I have in front of me.
I would like this to remain private.
Okay.
You certainly can discuss with others, you know, your thoughts and your feelings and
Okay.
the overall numbers, but as far as making copies and disseminating it amongst the citizens, I'd rather we just keep that. You know, the results is in itself that, you know, out of 595, he scored, you know, almost 529 eligible points.
Okay.
So I think that's a pretty high standard.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to village manager report.
Yes, first off, not on the agenda, but I did want to take 1 minute just again to highlight and thank Alex Lee. This is the second meeting that we initiated having citizens remote in for citizen comments. It will be a practice at each of our council meetings. As we can see in the room, it takes a bit on. Right now, our plan is on planning commission meetings where there's action items. If there was a vote on an item, we would set up a webinar for citizens to remote in. If there, quite often in some of our governmental meetings, less than a council, there are not action items. So we probably won't set webinars up during that, but we're gonna test it out as we go, if we can get it simplified in that. But we certainly wanted the citizens to know during the planning commission, if there are any action items, we'd set up the same format for people's comfort level. Also, we'll be using similar formats like we did last year as we now begin the budget season. Did want to update the council on the fire authority budget recommendation from myself. The council, I'm not sure if we had a full council, but it started in November. Trustee Olson had sent me budget documents he was provided and asked me to look at them and provide my input. It then from there went in front of the full council, with the full council asking to provide the input. We made some initial contacts both by phone and email to the administrator of the fire authority. It progressed to December 23rd, a formal letter being sent, which progressed to January 14th, and it progressed because we didn't hear a response to an actual FOIA being filed on multiple pieces of information to be able to piece together the original documents of the FOIA. Trying to, if I have it here, or it might be by email. Let me, just one quick second. And so people on Zoom know I wasn't, I'm trying to find the document to share it, but the original they came in so many different formats. But anyway, the council was provided with the original document. For lack of real definition, it came out of a business software, and it was more like Excel spreadsheets with a lot of numbers that prompted a lot of questions. It was very confusing for someone who's been involved in budgets for over 20 years. It didn't come with a narrative description, didn't come with any type of summaries. So we did submit that actual FOIA. The FOIA was responded to by the administrator of the fire authority that we'd received the documents on January 26th. I'd be able to review those documents. And one of the board members, the Brady Township supervisor, had indicated on January 20th that a Zoom meeting would be set up between the village manager of Schoolcraft and myself to help both of us. The Village of Schoolcraft voted not to support the budget. They had submitted written questions as well back on December 10th and had concerns, and in fact had submitted multiple FOIAs as well. As most of you know, I was on vacation. Didn't receive anything on the 26th. I think I waited 4 or 5 business days past when the FOIA, and sent an email, I think on February 2nd, on a Wednesday, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, reminding the administrator, who is also the FOIA coordinator of the authority, that they hadn't honored the FOIA, and I had received no information as of yet. We worked that out. All of my answers came from the Brady Township supervisor, who sent a response that I've provided to the council in the packet. I think it's important for our council to hear first how I accepted the task. I accepted the task on a unanimous vote from the council to get this council answers, reference our recommendation if you as a council by majority should support the fire board's proposed draft budget, which this village is a member of. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time other than to tell you, though some don't maybe not appreciate 32 years in government in 22 years at an executive level, I don't say it lightly. One of the most frustrating exercises I've ever attempted to get from a neighboring jurisdiction, much less one that this village is a member of. Throughout the process, the paid administrator communicated less than 5 times by email with me, including an email that said she was unavailable to talk on the phone and just sent stuff in writing. So when we got the documents, it reminded me a lot of what we inherited here in the village in 2016. Trustee Olson was at the meeting in December where it was acknowledged that there wasn't even a purchasing policy to guide this governmental organization. And when you piece back the documentation that I did receive, prior to that acknowledgement in the meeting from the administrator, I was sent minutes from 2013 and articles of incorporation from 2013, which I believe have been updated since. I'm not positive of that. And didn't acknowledge they didn't have a purchasing policy. Then when you, let's go back to February 2nd. I sent an email describing that the FOIA hadn't been answered by January 26th, which they had communicated they would answer by that date. Later, I think it was around 1 in the afternoon, I sent the email. I did, again, not from the administrator, but from Brady Township supervisor, received communications and answers to our questions. And the Brady Township supervisor did at that point schedule a Zoom meeting that we participate, we being the village manager of Schoolcraft and myself, participated in on Friday. It was organized and the link was sent by the Brady Township supervisor. Chairman of the Fire Authority, Jason Gatlin, participated as well as the administrator, Tanya D. I would say 90 percentile of the information was answered by the board member from Brady Township to our questions. I'll give multiple members, and specifically Trustee Reister, President Frisbee, and Trustee Merrill have been a part of this journey since August of 2016. Denny Olson probably was at every council meeting since that point and well before that point.
Well before.
And I think others were motivated to get on the council to be part of what we've done. And I said on January 17th, change brings different reactions from individuals. Acceptance, passion to be part of the journey, and sometimes resistance to the unknown, resistance to the uncomfortableness, maybe, of it. But I think the results of the village of Vicksburg speak loud and clear, and we've witnessed them here tonight. when you have a foundation of policies which went in front of council with public input and were put in place 16 through 18, the 7 policies that create the foundation for how we present a budget are a credit card policy, a fund balance policy, a conflict of interest policy, a capital asset management policy, a general ledger policy, as well as a fairly detailed purchasing policy. And then absolute adherence to the policies with relentless follow-ups in the recognition that we're human beings that carry that out. I've stood and sat in front of this council and self-acknowledged mistakes that have been made and taken ownership in those mistakes that either anyone on staff makes. I'm the leader, and I will stand tall and have taken and apologized when need be for that. And that's the importance of policies. I did send all of these policies to the fire authority. I first sent the purchasing policy because they asked for it at their December 15th meeting. I sent it the very next day. I was up in Saginaw on a vacation day, but sent it. Did not receive one single acknowledgement from anyone in the fire authority. I'm happy to report that policy went in draft form in front of them in January, and hopefully, I believe, based on the conversation Friday, it'll be in front of their board for vote this month. The other policies I sent on January 24th, and I believe those emails could be contained in the packet. I didn't receive any response from anyone on the fire authority reference that, so we asked. We being again, Sherry Lutz and myself, re-emphasized that we were full-time paid staff of 2 of the entities involved in the fire authority, more than happy to draft the policies, send them to the chairperson to put in front of their board and adapt as they will. That was never taken up. I was asked to send the policies again, and since then have received an email that they'd like them in Word document, which they'll get tomorrow in Word document, and hopefully it would be strong advice and encouragement that those policies are supported at, and certainly presented at the fire authority and then adhered to as it goes on. But again, I'll let you know that I talked to Village Manager Lutz and myself. We're more than happy to help out if that plays out. And I'll get to my recommendation, but in reviewing the documents that are contained in your packet, here again, no different than what we inherited in 2016 from the village. We had to really strongly look internally and make decisions. Were we going to do everything in our responsibility, or conversely, I'll use the word power as elected officials, to put in place an opportunity to become a best practice municipality? Because, again, what we're discussing and what we've discussed since November has nothing to do with the exceptional performance and heroic efforts of the men and women who comprise being firefighters for this agency, or the fire chief that leads them. It's an unusual spot to what some might consider as criticism. I believe Village Manager Lutz and myself in written communications are trying to help. What are the documents that you receive? And due to the sake of time, I'm only going to give 2. got many questions, reference procedure, but it's not my place. But I'm concerned in this aspect that there isn't a conflict of interest policy. I did ask Chairperson Gatlin referenced the purchases through his company. He said he doesn't tack anything on the equipment. I did explain the conflict of interest should have been stated. And I don't want to belabor that, but I do want to point out that on 3 computers that went in front of the board, because we talked Friday about practice. What's going on in practice? Who's authorizing payroll? Who, if things go in front of the board for approval, what's purchased before it goes to the board and just as in a warrant report, or what is specifically gone in front of the board? And so I use this one example. There are others. But on October 21st of 2020 in the chief's report, there's multiple equipment requests, $1,206 to $2,692 for diff pagers, chargers, stuff. Then 3 workstations, computers for the stations at $9,942.25. Another request for racks for $7,400. But it was our advice that, like Village of Schoolcraft and certainly us, you're all aware of, would put a summary together, articulate where those quotes are coming from in that type of situation. And I believe we suggested that in the future that all monetary actions are done by roll call vote, not as their practice of recent a voice vote, and they acknowledged that. But on this date, there were only 4 board members, one of them being Chairperson Gatlin. Under the state expectations on a conflict of interest, the chairperson wouldn't be counted as a quorum. And I just think that's just one example that highlights it should have been known by one of the 6 board members, including the person from Vicksburg. This is a conflict of interest. The problem is, from the minutes, and that's all you have to read, it doesn't say that these computers are going to be purchased from Mr. Gatlin's company. So I don't know how we can hold those board members based on the minutes, but we certainly can educate them for the future. And we explained to Mr. Gatlin he might be providing additional services that are real benefit to the authority. So we encouraged him as a business owner to continue to put in for that, but just there should be a clarification on the record. The second example that for me is, and I think President Frisbee made comments, something I've never really operated, taken a poll, how many people like me or the decisions I make. I just try to land and stand tall in front of a God I've accepted in my family. The part of what Village of Schoolcraft inquired about, and this goes back to 2018 really, why 2 administrators were being paid by the South County Fire Authority, and one of those persons being an elected official. And all you have to do, all we have is the written note, minutes, and what they provide us. And again, part of our progression, and you've experienced it since January of 20, for less than a $15,000 investment, all of our meetings are streamed on YouTube. We've progressed now to, went through Zoom and that, but you look at some of the original answers, and what I want to highlight is a letter was sent from the Village of Schoolcraft in December of 2018, could have been in December or November of 18, making that inquiry. And on January 16th of 19, in the minutes, part of what the request also said is provide the minutes that supported 2 administrators being paid. So the minutes that were provided are from January 16th of 2019. And under communications on page 1, communications 1B, boy, in fact, at first, under number 1, it says, the board received a letter from the Village of Schoolcraft, and Losi and Gatlin have a meeting with the village on Friday, January 25th, 2019. Below are a few points Losi wanted to discuss. In B's was bylaws in question with village regarding payment of 2 administrators. Losi stated that the board voted to have Losi train the new administrator. The board all agreed at the meeting that the statement is true and Losi is acting as a trainer, and Losi is to train and get paid until the administrator training is complete. There was no board minutes provided that showed a board vote to know if the other members had full understanding what was transpiring. In January of 2019, it was April, May, June of 18 that Losi announced she was getting off as an administrator and going to be on the board. It was August of 18 that the new administrator was hired at full pay. So this is after the hire, a full 5 months later, that the Village of Schoolcraft started to ask some questions. And then you had to FOIA because the answer was, well, the compensation stopped when the training was done, and then asked more questions, and it went through the 1920 fiscal year, which Trustee Olson can correct me, I believe that ends in March 31st. Their fiscal year starts April 1st. So the 20 ended in March of 2020. Well, then you get the W-2s and you find out that full pay in 2018, appropriate with training. All 12 months full pay in 2019, we're up to 17 months, and half the yearly pay, so the conclusion would be through June 30th of 2020, at least compensated for 50% of the yearly compensation. And I think there are significant examples in today's technology and in today's scrutiny of government that draws some additional questions, for sure. But I want to highlight, we offered to write the draft policies. We're going to send them in Word document. Hopefully, the purchasing policy, we're told, does come in front of the board to vote on. Hopefully, it gets unanimous support, and hopefully these additional conflict of interest policies, credit card policies, and the like all eventually come in front of the board and take place. I'll pause there if anyone has any questions, and I'll move to the document that was sent to me. On the budget itself, like I said, with no narrative and the structural, you guys have a copy. We don't have to spend a lot of time on the 3-page letter that I wrote with multiple questions and clarifications there. In the responses that I provided in the packet are multiple acknowledgments of errors or and we're all human beings. We make errors every day. Like I just said, this is no living in a glass house. This is no, I think Tanya D is doing the best she can, and it's not critical, so I don't want it to come off that way. I do appreciate the improvements that were made. I also supplied the I asked specifically for it to be in a resolution form as a budget with, they call it cost centers, but we call it funds. So they have put that together. I've shared that with you. This is what I'm told is going to come in front of. I received this from Board Member Losi. It is, and it, with everything that was sent to me, as you can see in the resolutions, along with commitment and assignments. And to clarify, I believe the council knows, but so why do we want those commitment and assignments on capital CIP purchases and projection of cost in investment? Really, it's investment, and whether it's as large as a fire apparatus, whether it's $237,000 worth of SCBA, or whether it's a single axe. Why we want to project that out is it impacts our allocation each year to the fire authority. And I think in the long run, it will be a great improvement and benefit all. And hopefully, as I explained at the meeting to Mr. Gatlin and on the remote call, and Sherry Lutz did a wonderful job explaining, look, we've been in this a long time. Our overall goal is to work together and make that board in as best as it can be. And that, you know, this little, call it a hiccup or whatever, is something we put behind us, and I do appreciate the effort. The last concern that I have is, as I read the Articles of Incorporation, all of the communication after I started sending it came from a single board member when they have a paid administrator, and we asked that during a paid administrator who has been with that organization for 4 years. I would caution the members of, I mean, it's not designed and set up much like this council. It's not you guys set the policy. You charge me with the responsibility to carry that policy out and make sure we meet your expectations. I, in turn, make sure the staff meets the expectations, but I bear the responsibility. If one board member is making those decisions and doing all the communication and the other board members don't know, that's not how the system is set up to be. So I would put it there. With that, I want to conclude again with the resolution as it's written, the assignments in resolution form, and we talked Friday, I don't know if it was Friday or maybe Saturday at the latest, that Tracy Losi sent it to me, so I do certainly appreciate the quick turnaround time that she did on that. I would recommend that the council support the resolution, South Kalamazoo County Fire Authority Resolution 0216-2022-1 as presented here tonight. I would recommend that the purchasing policy is voted on prior to the budget adoption so that we know the purchasing policy is in place prior to the approval of this budget. And I will withdraw my recommendation if the purchasing policy is not in place. It's an elementary guiding document that should be there for all the board members to know and know the processes. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Jim, what is a SCBA?
It's a self-contained breathing apparatus. It goes on the back of the firefighter, provides air, pressurized air as they're fighting fire interior. If you remember, on their original documents, they were going to purchase 10 at $237,000 in my experience. And this is it's just fact. It's a subject matter I've spent decades administrating. 10 of them, they're about $7,000 to $9,000 a piece. I called 2 vendors I'm very associated with, confirmed that, and that was one of the questions as they had listed out 237. They said the error was that they're in need of, I think, 34 or 37 of them.
That was my other question. That number changed from the original presented to us, yeah.
Yeah, it was a human error on data input, I would say. That's what we were told.
So that number's a little bit more in line with what your expectations would be?
Yes, and Tracy Losi committed to, before a purchase of that size, the chief would supply the competitive process and RFP process if it was, because what you can do as well in these situations is find another agency that did a competitive bid on specs you need, and you could, I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but there's a way to present that within the government rules as well. The one bit of information that was a clarification for me on Friday was that there will not be a fire apparatus purchased in the 22-23 fiscal year, that time frame would be spent on gathering the information of the specs of the exact apparatus that I believe the chief and senior officers would recommend that so if there would be, she envisioned that the actual presentation approval in the beginning of the purchasing of that apparatus would occur after March 31st of 2023. So there was some information out there, and that was one of our concerns, that, but that's how it was explained to us.
President Frisbee, I asked Jim when I found out about the meeting coming up between him and Cheryl and Tracy Losi, I asked if I could sit in on that meeting. As a member of the Fire Authority and a member of this council, I should have been allowed to sit in. I don't have to ask questions. I just want to sit and listen. Jason Gatlin and Tanya D. were both brought in by Tracy Losi. No matter what, I still should have been allowed to sit in on that meeting. As I'll let you know later in the meeting, but I've been assigned to the apparatus committee for South County. The way I understood it was a full committee, but I guess they were missing a member. I am now on that. I know trucks. I sold trucks. I drove trucks. My grandfather drove trucks. My dad, my brothers, my brother-in-laws, father-in-laws, we all drove trucks. I sold the truck parts. I know how to tear those things apart and put them back together again. The pumps that are on those things, my dad was head of maintenance for Allied Chemical Corporation for 42 years. We've tore apart pumps that can pump 3,000 to 5,000 gallons a minute. So we know what we're looking at when it comes to these trucks. That's one of the reasons I took the assignment to the apparatus committee. We sat and talked, and the prices of these trucks are going right through the roof right now. Labor is shooting up anywhere from 10 to 15%. Parts, steel alone, oh my God, I can't believe the price of steel right now. If we're looking at a truck for $350,000, by the time we receive it, it's probably going to be well over $4,000. Chief McMillan right now is working on quotes. That his number one top priority right now, other than fire calls, is to work on these quotes. So we are not going to order one truck, we're going to order 2. Because by the time that we get them, we are looking at 1.5 years to 2 years and possibly longer down the line. If we don't get the orders in now, then we're probably going to be looking at higher prices, even higher, and and a longer delivery date. We have one truck right now that needs to be replaced. We're getting cracks in the tank, and every time we turn around, this thing is in for repairs. It's aging, and we have an aging fleet. So we're probably, within the next few years, going to be spending in excess of $1 million for new equipment just for the fire department. And that's not even including 1, 2, and possibly even 3 stations. So.
Have you been planning for this?
There is money being set aside. It's allocated for trucks and equipment. That is being allocated aside. There is no money right now for fire stations. We are going to have to go to the voters whether we like it or not.
On some of the information on Friday for the council to be aware of, there's $1 million on assignments. That's total for every assignment, whether fire apparatus, equipment, clothing, training, pagers, phones. There's $1 million of that money, and there's $699,000 that's unassigned. I'm not sure if the fire board or this committee, I've actually purchased, been a part of about 5 fire apparatus. It's NFPA standard 1901 gives guidance on the purchasing of fire apparatus. As far as the specs and the timing and all of that, I think what's important is the process on a piece of equipment on Trustee Olson's numbers of $350,000, that the council is comfortable with how that process proceeds. And if it proceeds regardless of the timing of it, that should come in front of the board. There should be a discussion, a vote, and all I am is a messenger from the Friday meeting of the chairman saying that it was going to take a full year to discuss. But there is an NFPA standard, it's 1901, on the oversight of actual fire apparatus.
If I could, President Frisbee. So I think to both Trustee Olson and Jim's comments here, I think that really does highlight the absolute importance. If we're looking at potentially a $2 million outlay in the next 2 fiscal years for this entity, I think we need to have this done yesterday to have these types of policies in place to make sure that those funds are being addressed, allocated, and distributed correctly for all the taxpayers that are a part of this authority. I think that just highlights how critical it is. And Denny, you said it really well, that in the next several years, that's one of the largest purchases this organization or the fire organization is going to make, or is within their scope, if I'm not incorrect in saying that. But absolutely, we need to get these put into place now. It's the most important.
President Frisbee, if I could.
Yes.
Mr. Mallory, I'm trying to dissimulate here where we're at. Are we talking about, this is all about policy not being regular, and so we're looking to write it? Or are the irregularities such, based on your experience, that at some point we may want a third party to come in and take a look at this a little bit closer? Because here's my final thought on this. And that is, and I appreciate Trustee Olson's comments because you're very knowledgeable about the fire authority, but as a citizen of this community, before I'm ever asked to raise another solid dime for anything for this organization, this authority, I sure as hell want to know one thing. What happened to all the money? Where is it at?
Yeah, I don't want to leave anyone an impression where the money's at. I know on true dollars that, like I said, it's $1,699,000. We also suggested with that amount of money, like the general ledger policy, which I've sent, the fund balance policy, I've sent them. We also suggested to look at a Cedars program. We just moved money to a different financial institution based on a higher rate. We provided that to board member Losi inquired I asked her to Treasurer Morgan, and Michelle right away answered that. Where I'm at is I was charged to provide my recommendation on the budget. My recommendation is first and foremost based on the changes, the improvements, it being in resolution form, and having what I feel is a more easily read document and thus improves the transparency, that I'm comfortable in recommending that resolution being approved based only on if the purchasing policy is approved prior. Where I'm at with the other documents that were sent is where I was at by the end of August of 2016 with the village of Vicksburg. That things were going to change or I'm not going to be a part of it. And Trustee Reister might remember a pretty frank one-on-one talk I had in her living room that it shocks my conscience as a 30-year resident of South Kalamazoo County that 6 elected officials haven't put in policy. Now, I'm not in the business, and it's not wise, probably, in any manager's handbook, but in using Mr. Holmes's vernacular, what the hell? I've been a resident here a long time. People are elected to represent the public in a transparent manner. And there needs to be improvements at the board level. I want to highlight so much, and I'll probably say it again. This has nothing to do with the men and women serving as firefighters. And we are all incredibly appreciative of their efforts. But when you hear stories how firefighters have had trouble getting minor equipment purchased, and this organization paid a board member for 23 months to train, I'm just going to end it with, if that wasn't a director working on my team, and it's not just words. This community in South Kalamazoo County has 6 years of actionable results on Jim Mallory's leadership. We put together a team that has a work ethic, integrity, and commitment to serve. We formulate plans with everyone's input. We get the over-direction from the council on the expectations, and we relentlessly follow up to make sure we meet those expectations in a transparent manner. I have nothing to hide in my professional life. I truly have nothing to hide in my life. But we put our finances up on the website, we do the summaries, and we acknowledge we're human beings. And that's really what I want to kind of conclude with. It's my hope and belief that once the 6 members of the board see how these policies will improve their organization, they'll embrace them wholeheartedly. And I truly have faith that'll happen.
President Frisbee?
Sir.
To echo what Manager Mallory has said, I don't think anybody on this board is accusing anyone or of any improprieties that were done in the past. However, the accounting processes that were used were horrible for a government entity to do. There was no transparency, there was no traceability. It looks bad. It just looks bad. So I think moving forward, these policies being adopted will remedy that. So having said that, I'm going to make a motion that we support the updated resolution by the South County Fire Authority contingent upon them passing the purchasing guidelines that we have submitted to them. It'll be contingent on that. If the board does not vote that in, then we are pulling our support for the budget.
Motion's been made. Is there support?
I'll support that motion.
President Pro Tem Keller, motions, and Trustee Wagner support.
President Frisbee,
Sir?
if I learned something tonight, I learned that after a motion is seconded.
Mike.
That I, or any trustee has the ability to amend that motion. I'd like to offer an amendment to that motion. What that motion is that I would ask that we ask the village manager to continue his professional, dare I call it, forensic analysis of the information that's given, and come back to this council and share with him what additional information he gets so that we have knowledge in looking backward. I'm not so forgiving, folks. I'm a Christian, but I'm not so forgiving. And I'm not looking to hurt anybody either. But as far as I'm concerned, when we leave here, what do you think the first question we're going to be asked by taxpayers who are watching this right now? You know what? Same old thing. We're moving forward. We're not holding anybody accountable. Let's hold people accountable if that's the case. If we're wrong, then we're wrong. And I'm going to stop now because I realize I'm coming up to a line of accusing people of things. I don't want to do that, but I'd like to suggest that we amend Trustee Keller's motion to have the village manager continue following up and use his professional experience, knowledge, and expertise in getting back with us with additional insight and information regarding the finances that he's reviewing at the Fire Authority.
If I could make a recommendation that we move ahead on the first motion, and you are feel free to make a secondary motion.
Okay.
In that respect.
Discussion?
Sir?
Tim, you and Jim.
Do you have the mic?
Oh, I thought I was on. Okay, I'm on now. Thank you. No, I was on. See?
Just gotta be next to it.
Okay. You, Jim and Tim and Ryan were all at the Fire Authority meeting, okay? And I brought up the fact then that our auditing firm never caught any of this. That this is the same firm that does Vicksburg and Schoolcraft and Schoolcraft Township and all the entities in the immediate area. They didn't catch it. Bill Adams sat on that board for 3-4 years. Colin Bailey sat on it for 4 years. Don Alsh has been on and off over the last few years, and none of them caught it.
Their job is not, and as you recall over the last several audits we've had, they go out of their way to specify this is not a forensic audit. These are comments on the way we do our business. They are not looking for improprieties. They search out none. That is not their job. With that, they don't look for that.
But they have sent flags to some of the
They
communities.
don't comment on that. They comment on your policies, your procedures, and your sticking to your procedures you have in place. Am I correct in that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they go out of their way to tell us
Yes,
that very thing.
yeah.
And to that point,
Yeah.
you all sat up there and made the same comment. Well, our audits have had the same comment for the last 5 years. I found that totally unacceptable. 2 years in a row of comments made, figure out a way to change it. Figure out a way to fix it. And you as our representative ought to be demanding that. We need some changes. They need to operate a little bit more responsible in a more open and forthright manner.
And I agree. Now, Jim has suggested through an email to me a possible audit of the Fire Authority. And he mentioned Mary Balkema. Okay? I want to know if Jim's going to recommend that or not.
Well, let's get through the recommendation
get
of this
through the first
resolution
thing.
first. There is a motion and a support, motion by Keller, supported by Ms. Trustee Wagner. We'll do a roll call, please.
Roll call. on the motion, if I've captured it correctly, to support South Kalamazoo County Fire Authority Resolution 0216-2022-1, to accept it as written and support that resolution based on the contingency that the draft purchasing policy that was presented at the January South Kalamazoo County Fire Authority and is scheduled to be on the agenda at the February 16th or February Fire Authority meeting is approved prior to the resolution. If the purchasing policy is approved, then it's the desire of this council that this resolution or the proposed budget for 22-23 is also voted in the affirmative by the representative.
Agreed.
Okay. Roll call vote. Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries. We have an update on a Director of Planning.
Yes. Couple months ago, well, actually more than that, I was contacted by Bobby Durkee, and with his schedule at the city of Kalamazoo, as well as he is the very proud father and should be of four outstanding young ladies as his daughters, and a wonderful wife, those family commitments. He gave me an incredible notice that his time was running short, or available time in an official capacity for the village of Vicksburg. And we're down to about 30 days of that. There are I've made some inquiries, and possible another option I'm looking at, because it's certainly to have someone with those expertise are valuable on the team. But I wanted to bring it to the council's attention that here in the next 30 to 45 days, I'll probably be presenting what I feel is the best option to continue that moving forward. And at the appropriate time, I'll be asking Bobby and his entire family to come in front of the council. He's been an invaluable team member to me, and we've all benefited by his service.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent idea, Jim. And Bobby deserves a lot of recognition for his tireless hours, and just in the in the planning commission, but we did the codification. That was the word I was looking for. The hours he spent and
On the master plan too.
master plan. So yeah, he's been invaluable, no deed, and good idea to acknowledge him.
President Frisbee, can I ask a question? Sure. Jim, what's, if you can, which I understand you may not be able to, can you give us a status on the tree situation out at CB McDonald Way?
Yeah, it's with the village attorney on that representative,
Okay.
and those negotiations would be going on between him and the village president, myself, and then
Okay.
once if we get that, I don't foresee us coming back in front of the council for months.
No. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim. Was there anything further you wanted to add before we move on?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify one comment. When Trustee Olson, or when on the email we're talking about and again, I reflect in and living in a glass house. It was prior to my arrival in August of 2019, but Mary Balkman's name mentioned in the email also included the fact that she's the one who helped the village of Vicksburg out. And that's, I have had no communication with Mary Balkman on the topic, but I wanted to clarify that the email was sent, but it also included the fact that was the person that helped us or this village out in the 14, 15, and at times since. So
We didn't make an agenda change, but I would like to add Parks and Rec, right, to the end of the,
Yeah.
so if all, to the committee reports?
Today.
Okay. Why don't we just start with you then, the Parks and Rec update?
Okay. On January 24th,
Do you have your, there you go.
we had, I guess I'd call it a work session. And we just kind of went over the recreation plan and ways of trying to improve things in the village. So we just kind of had conversations. And Jim, you weren't here, but anyway. So our next meeting will be February 28th. And so if people in the community have comments or ideas and things, they could email them to Jenny Holmes or myself regarding Parks and Rec. So that's about it. Yeah.
What time do you meet?
We meet just like this at 7 o'clock.
7?
On, I think you'd call it the fourth Friday of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
we meet in this room fourth Monday at
Monday,
Monday
excuse
at
me,
7
yes.
o'clock. So all the governmental meetings
fourth
are
day
on a
of the
Monday
month.
at 7.
Yeah.
Fourth,
Okay. I just wondered the
Monday of the
time.
month. Yeah.
You said Friday, I'm not
Monday,
signing
sorry.
up for that committee.
No, we don't want to be here on a
I didn't
Friday.
even
All
hear
right.
the Friday. I knew it was Monday.
We have planning, if that was it, Ms. Trustee Merrill, we'll have planning commission update.
The Planning Commission is actually next week, so there's no updates to
We'll
give.
get you next time. South County Fire,
Yeah, real quick, there was not a CATS meeting a couple weeks ago, and that was canceled at the last minute. South County Fire, just about the only update I have is I talked to Chief McMillan today. They normally run 3 calls a day. They had 6 calls by 1:30, and on the way home from picking up lunch, I heard them going out on the 7th call. So it's not accidents and that, it's mainly medicals right now. So the only other thing I have to add, and it really doesn't have to do with either one, but Jim and some of you might want to know, on June 11th, the first annual Ox outing in honor of our former police chief and county sheriff's deputy, Eric West, is going to be held at the Pineview Golf Course. All proceeds from this event is going to go to the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's K-9 unit. So that's June 11th. So, thank you.
South County Sewer.
I actually didn't attend the meeting 2 weeks ago. I was home with the dreaded Omicron variant. So, however, due to technology updates, I did get update on their minutes. It appears that Barton Lake, looks like they said they have 54% of the land area is in favor of trying to proceed with their sewer project going around the lake. So I think that is moving forward. They also, Village of Schoolcraft was having meetings with MDOT. They're still discussing their infrastructure project in Schoolcraft. Evidently, MDOT is looking to help defray some of the possible infrastructure costs, which may try to entice Schoolcraft to do something.
Yeah.
Prime Newhoff, I guess, is involved in that project with the Village of Schoolcraft, so that's moving forward, so to speak. Mr. LaPierre is the new administrator for South County Sewer and Water, in case you didn't know. And they have hired a new administrative assistant as of this last meeting. And that seems to be all that's going on, other than just their basic technology updates that they're doing. and, which doesn't really affect us, but it affects the authority with our lift stations around the area, so that's it.
Thank you, sir. We have a tree committee update?
No, we don't have any update. We canceled our last meeting because Kay was going to have surgery and they didn't want to take any chances about them getting sick in between times. So we will be meeting at the end of this month again.
Alrighty. Excellent. That's does it for the committees. I'll do village trustees time. Trustee Merrill.
Nothing much to say.
Trustee Holmes.
I would like to make a motion for the village manager to inquire into whether an audit is suggested for the South County Fire Authority.
I'll support.
We got a motion and support for further recommendations as to the next stage of investigation. Audit.
If I can offer some comments, maybe for the council. If the council desires me to attend the next few fire board meetings and have dialogue with their administrator, I certainly will do that. And I would hope, maybe through our representative on the board, that if the fire administrator, Miss D, Sherry Lutz from Schoolcraft, and myself, and it can rotate. Their quorum's 4, I believe, so 3 representatives, 2 representatives, even had quarterly contact. And if we had questions or were supplied the documents that go to board members, we could certainly continue to aid and help. And if we saw other improvements, in our opinion, we could present it to the board for their overall evaluation. I share some of your comments, Trustee Holmes. I'm more, from what I've seen, energized to get the policies in place and ensure the procedure follows those policies, and that the full board's aware of what's going on. And it would be, again, my advice, having been in the business a while, that it should be the administrator administrating. And if the case is it's predominantly done by one board member, that should be rectified. I don't know how to, I don't have enough information, I guess. It's the word audit that I'm stuck on. If it's become an observer and review documents, I follow that. It's just the word audit that I don't even know if I...
Coach us up, Jim, because from this perspective, this is how I look at it right now. What the community has heard tonight is simply this, and that we have bad policy at best within an authority in which our taxpayer funds are being spent on. You're doing a great job of reaching out to them and trying to reconcile that to get them aligned. That's what we voted on tonight. The thing that I want to make sure that we do, that we can look citizens in the eye, is simply this, and that is that we also ensured that as it relates to any of the funding that has been provided, that it's been spent properly, is all I'm saying. So help me with the motion then.
It'd be my recommendations that we have a standardized reporting back from the representative, especially when the policies are put forward in draft and ultimately voted on in that status, to get these policies in place, as well as the practical procedures. And I have literally hundreds of examples that 3 of these board council members lived with me through on things we had to improve in the village. So again, it's easily obtainable, and it's my hope and faith that we're getting there. It's been frustrating that a member entity had to go through this process of FOIAs. And I'm not a, so I think I could present to this council, for this council's approval, what these items, whether it's 1 or 10, I don't know, that would like to be reported back on, and we could do that for each of the subcommittees, but on the fire we're talking about tonight. And then if there's additional information beyond that, the representative of the committee could report back. I hope, much like in 2016, 17, and 18, I knew that we'd put the policies in front of this council to make those improvements. And it's my belief that the administrator will do that with the fire authority. So I'd like to let that play out and attend their meetings, the next 2 or 3, because to me, the purchasing policy would be voted on in the February meeting, and the appropriate policy, they have time to get those other policies in draft form to the committee or to the board to vote on in March, April at the latest. And I don't know what any elected official would resist having those policies in place for. And so those would be like flags I would look for of what those delays are.
I would like to table my motion, but also say to my fellow trustees that this is something that I will be waiting with great interest to hear from both Trustee Olson as well as from the village manager regarding what additional, where we go with this, but as well as possibly what additional information that can be shared with us. So I'll table my motion.
And I also, what I think I'm hearing you say is that right now, getting policies in place is more important. That's the most important thing right now.
Correct.
Am I hearing
think
that correctly?
it would, we learned quite a bit having access to historical documents in the village, but 100% to move into the future, the policies need to get in place.
Yeah, okay,
And then just follow the policies.
okay.
They're going to lead you in improvement. The 6 entities are going to be able to predict their allocations. It'll help our budgeting when we see what is needed. Trustee Olson's, but there's standards on all this.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
standards, industrial standards that should be followed too with people who've done it.
Thank you.
Trustee Olson?
I'd like to add, yeah, there's been discussion amongst my inner circle, which includes politicians, former politicians, this and that have all gone through something like this. And it is recommended that if it comes down to an audit, we seek an outside firm. We do not go with anybody who has ever been associated with this village, Mr. Mowry or myself. I am recommending if an audit needs to be done, that we go to the Michigan State Attorney General's integrity unit. That unit strictly goes after stuff like this. They tear it apart and put it back together again, and they make recommendations, and if need be, there will be punishment. I have dealt with the integrity unit before. I know people within the unit. I will be more than glad to call them and contact them and ask them, if necessary, to step in. I believe they would at least take a look at it. Now, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's been any thievery or anything going on, and I'm not going to accuse anybody of it. As far as policies go, yeah, even I can see that there's policies that need to be put in place and should have been put in place by past boards. But I am one of those people, too, that I believe we need to move on. If we need to do something, then let's do it.
Yeah, I would just add to that. It really, on those comments, should come from that governmental authority. We might have, and I don't think I heard anyone accuse anyone of that, but I think it should, like I say, play out that the authority will get the policies in place. They'll ensure that the procedure meets the policy. I predict the 23-24 budget will will be back in resolution form with a lot of detail to the assignments that'll include the dollars for the apparatus of that year and any other needs of the future that'll help all 6 municipalities out. I believe that's where it'll get to, but so.
Trustee Wagner.
Nothing left for me this evening. Thank you.
Trustee Reister.
I think everything's been said.
I do have one more thing to say before we adjourn the meeting, though, sir. I didn't know if other trustees had.
Yeah.
Did you get your time, Denny?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I've said enough tonight.
Jim, you were asking for another opportunity?
Yeah, just about 15 seconds.
All right.
So I like, probably Zoom can't see it, and I'll fumble it, but that right there is Macklin Grace Mallory. And as of 24 hours ago, I'm a proud grandfather of a little baby girl out in Oklahoma City. And it, maybe it's those of you that are grandparents, no, maybe it's that brings this calmness to me, because this is what life's about right there.
I think we need to keep this picture at the end of every meeting to keep
Right,
you
right.
just eyes on the prize.
Let's just start the meeting with it.
There we go.
Congratulations.
Good job, Jim.
Thank you for allowing me that. So.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Well, as a grandfather of 4, welcome to the club. So I was with 2 of my grandkids at the Saginaw Children's Museum on Saturday. So Jim happened to tell me he left my packet at the door. I said, well, I'm in your hometown. So he's like, Saginaw? I said, yeah. So I was up there visiting that museum. I'm just letting the residents know that actually the Vicksburg Mafia contingency went to the Brady Township Hall meeting last Wednesday. Tim and I walked in, and Mr. Lee was there. I think we kind of shocked the board, and Denny showed up too. It was mainly they had a topic of a charter township on their agenda. They voted it down at this time, and just so everybody understands what the ramifications of that would be, if by chance they ever decided to vote as a charter township, they would have to provide their own police and fire protection. Fire protection is covered, obviously, with the South County Fire Authority. Police is not, which means they would have to be contracted with the county, which means that they could raise everybody's taxes up by 5 mills without a vote. So that's only for people in Brady Township, which also includes those of us on the east side of Vicksburg. So it was voted down.
No wonder you went.
Well, but we wanted to see how the professionals do it too, as President Frisbee said. So, at any rate, but we did attend the meeting. I think they were a little shocked to see actually people in the seats. So, at any rate, that's all I got.
It was a nice snowy night. I'll wrap it up. The committee status, there's 2 that haven't replied, so if you would just give me your desires on that. I just want to kind of clarify my vote on the 3-minute agenda and non-agenda item. We all lived it, and I don't want to go into too much description on it, but I don't want to have to shut somebody down again. And that's one of the main reasons this was done. It was being abused. So I kindly ask all the village residents, be respectful, be courteous, and treat your fellow man accordingly, and not take this as an opportunity just to beat everybody into the dirt. And that's why my reasoning behind my vote. I don't want to stifle anybody's right to speak, but just speak kindly. That's all I ask. And with that, any further?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.